Throughout the ages, there have been texts so dangerous, so profound, that the powers of their time sought to erase them from existence. Not because they were false, but because they revealed too much. Buried beneath layers of dogma and dust, these forbidden manuscripts whisper of fallen angels, ancient technologies, and truths that shake the foundations of empire and faith alike. Why were they silenced? Who feared their words? And what secrets did they hold that rulers, priests, and conquerors could not allow to spread? In this video, we journey into the shadows of human history to uncover ancient texts, banned, suppressed, and nearly forgotten. Each one holds a key to a different world, one of lost civilizations, one of hidden knowledge, and one of the human story rewritten. These are ancient books so powerful they were banned for centuries. The first book on our list is one that has haunted the edges of religious history for millennia. The Book of Enoch, a text so ancient, so revelatory, that it was banned from most canons and hidden from public knowledge for centuries. And yet, it survives, barely. Though attributed to Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah, the text was likely written between the 3rd and 1st centuries BCE. But its roots dig much deeper into the early mythos of Mesopotamia and into the strange pre-flood world hinted at in Genesis. The Book of Enoch was once considered sacred scripture by many early Jewish sects and even some early Christians, but eventually it was cast out, labeled heretical, dangerous, and too wild to fit within Orthodox theology. Why? Because it tells a version of human history that contradicts everything we're taught. At the heart of the Book of Enoch lies a tale both cosmic and catastrophic, the descent of the Watchers, fallen angels sent to Earth to watch over humanity. But instead of merely observing, these divine beings defied heaven. They taught humans forbidden knowledge, metallurgy, astronomy, weapon-making, sorcery, and most controversially of all, they took human women as wives, producing monstrous offspring known as the Nephilim, giants of old who corrupted the world before the Great Flood. It's a chilling narrative, one echoed in Genesis 6:4, but never fully explored in the Bible. Enoch's version is far more detailed. It reads not like a fable, but a suppressed historical account, one where divine rebellion leads to global catastrophe, one where forbidden wisdom is punished with eternal damnation. The angels, once majestic and radiant, are bound in chains beneath the earth, awaiting final judgment, and the giants, their half-human sons, are wiped from the earth in a cataclysm, an echo of the flood story found in countless cultures around the globe. But here's where it gets stranger. The Book of Enoch goes on to describe cosmic architecture, mysterious heavenly realms, wheels within wheels, portals to other dimensions. It offers mathematical cycles of the sun and moon, and a calendar system far more accurate than what was used in the medieval world. It speaks of stars as living entities and the movement of heavenly bodies as purposeful and intelligent. For centuries, the text was lost to the West. It survived only in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which preserved it in the ancient Ge'ez language. When European explorers first brought it back in the 18th century, scholars were stunned. Here was a fully formed apocalyptic text, older than the New Testament, eerily aligned with some passages of Revelation, and yet entirely unknown to most Christians and Jews. More shocking was how often it paralleled or influenced biblical thought. The concept of a Messiah, the resurrection of the dead, final judgment, and even some of the phrasing in the Book of Jude all seem to echo Enoch directly. So why was it banned? the answer may lie not in theology, but in control. The Book of Enoch presents a universe where divine beings can fall, where knowledge is dangerous, and where humans are not simply sinners, but pawns in a greater cosmic war. It paints a world where secrets are kept from the masses and where hidden truths lie buried under layers of sanctioned scripture. Such a worldview is threatening, especially to religious and political institutions built on certainty. To allow the Book of Enoch into the official canon would be to admit that there are other versions of history, versions that don't place humans at the center, versions that suggest we were once visited, taught, and judged by beings not of this world. And perhaps most disturbingly, it hints that the story isn't over, that the Watchers still lie chained in the deep, that the Nephilim may rise again, that judgment is not just coming, it's repeating. In modern times, the Book of Enoch has found new life. Fringe scholars, ancient astronaut theorists, and even some theologians now revisit it, looking for clues about humanity's hidden past. Could the Watchers be misunderstood visitors from another realm? Was their forbidden knowledge actually technology? Are the tales of giants found across the ancient world echoes of these long-lost hybrids? Mainstream academia remains skeptical, but the text remains and refuses to be silenced. It speaks of stars that sing, of mountains that hold secrets, of a time before time when gods walked among men. And in that, perhaps, lies the real reason it was banned. Because the Book of Enoch doesn't just challenge religion, it challenges reality.
The second book on our list is not born of deserts or scrolls. It did not emerge from the sands of the Near East, nor echo from the temples of Jerusalem or Babylon. It comes from deep within the misty highlands of Guatemala, from the dense jungles and ancient pyramids of a civilization whose memory still lingers in stone. It is called the Popol Vuh, the Book of the People. To the Maya, this was no ordinary text. It was sacred. It was survival, a record of the cosmos, of gods and men, of creation and destruction, all sung in a voice older than empire, older than conquest. The Popol Vuh almost didn't make it to us. When the Spanish arrived, they brought fire. With crosses in one hand and swords in the other, they burned libraries, shattered temples, and crushed languages. To them, the glyphs carved into bark paper books were heresy. The gods of the Maya were demons, their stories forbidden. And yet, somehow, this one survived. Not in its original form, the hieroglyphs are gone, but hidden in secret by Quiche Maya scribes, a single version was rewritten using the Latin alphabet, a whispered preservation. Centuries later, it would be discovered and translated by a Dominican friar named Francisco Jimenez. He didn't know what he had found. Few did. But what lay within its pages would defy time. The Popol Vuh begins not with man, but with emptiness. No sun, no moon, no earth. Only sky and sea suspended in eternal night. Then, the gods stir, the heart of sky, the heart of earth. They desire life. They want creatures to speak their name. Their first attempts fail. Humans of mud dissolve. Humans of wood are hollow, without soul. It is only when they fashion beings from maize, the sacred corn, that they succeed. To the Maya, this was no poetic myth. It was truth. Maize was life, flesh, spirit. And so humans were born, not in sin, but in sustenance. But the Popol Vuh is more than a creation myth. It is a cosmic journey. It tells of the hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque, born of divine blood, tricksters and warriors. They descend into Xibalba, the Mayan underworld, to challenge the lords of death. They face houses of knives, of darkness, of fire. They die, but they do not stay dead. Their severed heads become seeds. Their sacrifice becomes rebirth. They rise again. Gods reborn through trial, through darkness, through the cycle of the underworld. For the Maya, Xibalba was not hell. It was transformation. Death was not punishment. It was passage. This was not a world of binaries, of good versus evil. It was a world of balance, of duality. And through its pages, the Popol Vuh speaks in layers. To the trained eye, it is myth. To those who listen deeper, it is astronomy. The hero twins mirror the path of Venus, the morning star. Their descent and return reflect celestial cycles. The battles in the underworld are not just spiritual, they are cosmic metaphors. You see, the Maya were master astronomers. They tracked the planets with astonishing precision. They built pyramids aligned with solstices and equinoxes. And within their myths, they encoded the heavens. Time to them was not a line, it was a circle. Worlds were created, destroyed, and reborn. Our age, they said, was just the latest. Others had come before. Others had fallen. Is this just imagination, or a memory of cataclysms now lost to time? The Popol Vuh doesn't answer. It doesn't explain. It whispers. And for centuries, that whisper was silenced, suppressed not by official decree, but by fear, by conquest, by fire, by missionaries who called it pagan, by time, which buried it under ruin and rubble. But it lives. Not just in the pages Jimenez copied, it lives in oral stories passed down by elders, in carvings on stone walls, in the quiet resilience of Maya communities who never forgot. The Popol Vuh was never meant for the Western world. It speaks in riddles, in masks, in shadows. Its gods bleed, its heroes die and return. Its truths are not preached, they are hidden, waiting to be uncovered by those who dare to look beyond the veil. This was not just a book. It was a world, a coded message from a civilization that mapped the stars with myth, that understood that death was not the end, that maize and blood, sky and soul were all one. And now, as the world turns once more, as forgotten stories rise from ash and ruin, the Popol Vuh speaks again. A voice from the jungle, a fire that would not die, a forbidden wisdom carved into memory itself. And though they tried to erase it, the story remembered how to survive.
The next book on our list is called the Book of Thoth, a legendary scroll said to be written by the Egyptian god of wisdom himself. Thoth, the ibis-headed deity, was no ordinary god. He presided over writing, knowledge, and magic. He was the keeper of cosmic order and the scribe of the gods. And somewhere in Egypt's lost past, it was whispered that Thoth put his divine knowledge into a book that mortals were never meant to read. The Book of Thoth, according to ancient myth, granted its reader unlimited knowledge of the heavens, the earth, the sea, and the underworld. It was said to give the power to speak with animals, to command the elements, and even to raise the dead. But with that power came a curse. The first known tale of the book comes from a story inscribed in Demotic Egyptian around 300 BCE. It tells of a man named Setni Khamwas, a prince and a magician who ventures into a long-forgotten tomb beneath the desert sands in search of the forbidden scroll. Setni finds the Book of Thoth, resting beside the mummy of a priest who died trying to protect it. Ignoring warnings, Setni steals the book. What follows is a descent into madness and illusion. The gods torment Setni with hallucinations, grief, and cosmic punishment. The more he tries to use the book, the more it destroys him. In the end, he is forced to return the scroll to the tomb and swear never to seek it again. It's just a story, but behind it lies something more. Some scholars believe the Book of Thoth is not a single volume, but a symbolic representation of lost ancient knowledge, secret teachings about the structure of reality, sacred geometry, and divine language. Others point to texts like the coffin texts, the pyramid texts, and later Hermetic writings, suggesting that fragments of the Book of Thoth survived, scattered across cryptic inscriptions, ritual papyri, and scrolls buried in forgotten temples. What makes it truly dangerous, however, is what it represents. Unlike religious texts that ask for faith, the Book of Thoth offers direct access to the machinery of the universe. No intermediaries, no temples, no priests. Just you and the secrets of creation. For ancient rulers, this was terrifying. The idea that a single person could unlock divine knowledge without the permission of gods or kings was an existential threat to control, to orthodoxy, to empire. So the book became legend. Then it became taboo. In later centuries, occultists and secret societies claimed to possess copies or remnants of it, encoded in tarot, buried in the architecture of sacred buildings, hidden in plain sight. The term Book of Thoth was even used to describe early decks of tarot cards, believed to be fragments of ancient Egyptian wisdom disguised as divination tools. But no confirmed copy of the original book has ever surfaced. Some say it lies still buried beneath the sands of Egypt, sealed in a chamber no one has yet found. Others think it was destroyed, not by fire, but by intent, hidden from mankind by those who knew it was too powerful to be left in human hands. And then there are those who believe it still whispers, to the right minds, in dreams, in patterns, in moments of insight that feel like memory. The Book of Thoth is more than myth. It is the archetype of forbidden knowledge, knowledge that calls, seduces, punishes, and transforms. Whether it ever existed as a physical scroll is almost beside the point. What it means is far more real. It reminds us that there are truths so profound, so disruptive, that even gods feared what would happen if we read them. And yet, something about it still draws us in, just as it did Setni, just as it has for centuries. And maybe, just maybe, that's the greatest power of all.
The next text on our list is a tablet, small, green, and inscribed with words said to hold the secrets of the universe. It's known as the Emerald Tablet, a single page of writing attributed to a figure cloaked in eternal mystery, Hermes Trismegistus, part god, part man, part myth, a fusion of the Greek Hermes and the Egyptian Thoth. This tablet is said to have appeared from nowhere. Some say it was found clutched in the hands of a dead philosopher in an underground chamber. Others claim it was discovered in a hidden vault beneath a pyramid. There are even whispers that it descended from the stars. Wherever it came from, what it says is even more astonishing. The words etched into its green surface describe a cosmic truth. That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below. This single line became the foundation of alchemy, Hermeticism, and occult science in the West.
It suggests a universe of mirrors, the stars reflecting the soul reflecting the stars. A divine architecture hidden behind the visible world. The Emerald Tablet doesn't speak in clear instructions. It speaks in riddles. It promises transformation, not just of metals into gold, but of the soul itself, of immortality, enlightenment, ascension. And that's exactly why it was feared. Kings, priests, and inquisitors viewed it as dangerous knowledge, not because it preached rebellion, but because it whispered that power doesn't come from thrones or temples. It comes from within. For centuries, the tablet circulated in secret, copied in the margins of forbidden books, passed among mystics and scholars, translated into Arabic, Latin, and eventually European tongues. Every translation came with a warning. Some who read it claimed their minds unraveled. Some claimed they understood everything. Some vanished altogether. It became a cornerstone of the alchemical tradition, inspiring figures like Isaac Newton, who once wrote his own translation of the Emerald Tablet, kept hidden in his private papers. To many, this small green artifact was the Rosetta Stone of the occult. But what exactly does it teach? According to legend, the Emerald Tablet reveals how to make the Philosopher's Stone, the mythical substance that could grant eternal life and turn lead into gold. But in deeper circles, the stone is symbolic. The gold is the divine self. The process described, purification, dissolution, and unification, is not about minerals. It's about transcendence. This is knowledge that bypasses dogma, church, and empire. It doesn't beg for permission. It doesn't require belief. It simply is. And for that reason, it was suppressed. Religious authorities condemned it. Some burned copies. Others locked them away. Even today, the full truth of the Emerald Tablet remains contested. Half history, half legend. No one knows exactly when it was written. Some say it predates the pyramids. Others believe it came from Atlantis. A few insist it was never meant for human eyes at all. But one thing is certain. The Emerald Tablet has endured, survived, whispered its cryptic message across time. It asks nothing of you but to listen, and maybe to remember. The last book on this list doesn't look dangerous. It doesn't promise to raise the dead, summon gods, or control the stars. Instead, it offers something more subversive: clarity. The I Ching, or Book of Changes, is one of the oldest texts in human history. Its origins trace back to ancient China, nearly 3,000 years ago, though some scholars believe its foundations lie even deeper, in an oral tradition stretching back to the Ching dynasty or further. It's not a book of spells or commandments. It's not a religious manuscript or a political manifesto. It is a system, one that claims to describe the hidden patterns behind every event, every decision, every movement in the universe. The I Ching is composed of 64 hexagrams, figures made of 6 broken or unbroken lines, each representing a state of change. These patterns aren't static. They're in motion, like seasons, like fate, like time itself. By casting coins, sticks, or other methods, one could generate a hexagram, which would guide them through a specific moment of uncertainty. But this wasn't fortune-telling in the Western sense. It was something deeper. It was divination through alignment, syncing oneself with the rhythm of the cosmos. In its essence, the I Ching teaches that life is a dance of opposites: yin and yang, movement and stillness, action and restraint. Everything that exists is in a state of flux, and wisdom comes not from fighting change, but from understanding when to act and when to wait. For emperors, this book was sacred. For generals, it was strategy. For sages, it was a mirror of the Tao, the way. But for those in power, it also posed a problem. Because the I Ching doesn't require temples, it doesn't demand priests or rituals, it doesn't rely on dogma. It teaches people to think cyclically, to trust their own judgment, to see beneath the surface of events, and to know when truth is being twisted. That is what made it dangerous. During certain periods of Chinese history, the I Ching was banned, hidden, or burned, not because it was forgotten, but because it was feared. In the oppressive reign of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China, many classical texts were destroyed in the infamous burning of the books around 213 BCE. The I Ching, though ancient even then, narrowly survived, but copies were lost, hidden in walls, buried with the dead. Why? Because a population that reads the I Ching doesn't just obey orders. They interpret patterns. They detect lies. They act not from fear, but from timing. Later dynasties attempted to reframe the text. Confucian scholars bound it to ritual. Taoists linked it to cosmic energy. But the I Ching has always resisted control. Even today, no one fully agrees on what it is. A philosophical work, a spiritual tool, a mathematical system, a book of code. Perhaps it is all of them. Modern thinkers like Carl Jung turn to the I Ching as a psychological key, a text that taps into the collective unconscious, bypassing logic to reach intuition. In the Cold War, some intelligence agencies reportedly studied it, hoping to find insight into long-range strategic thinking. And in tech circles today, some quietly admire it as a binary system, a kind of proto-digital framework, built not with code, but with cosmic logic. But despite its reach, its true danger remains the same. It teaches independence of thought. In a world driven by algorithmic prediction, binary decisions, and absolute narratives, the I Ching remains cryptic, not because it is unclear, but because it refuses to simplify. It asks its reader to sit with ambiguity, to become comfortable in uncertainty, to ask not what should I do, but what is the moment asking of me? That kind of wisdom cannot be controlled. And that is why the I Ching, though not burned as often as other texts, has been quietly feared, reframed, and repurposed across millennia. Because once you begin to read it, truly read it, you realize that no authority, no leader, no ideology can match the insight of stillness, observation, and intuition. The Book of Changes isn't dangerous because it predicts the future. It's dangerous because it teaches you how to listen to it. And perhaps that's why it has survived this long. Not by force, not by decree, but by change, just like everything else.
These books were not forgotten by accident. They were buried, erased, or rewritten, not because they failed to matter, but because they mattered too much. From the visions of Enoch to the cryptic alchemy of the Emerald Tablet, from the secret teachings of Thoth to the shifting wisdom of the I Ching, each text whispered truths that didn't fit the sanctioned story of the world. They questioned heaven. They described hidden laws. They offered power, not through violence, but through knowledge. And that kind of power has always been the most dangerous of all. Because it doesn't need a sword, it doesn't need a crown, it only needs a reader. So ask yourself, how many more of these books lie forgotten beneath dust and stone? How many are still locked away in private vaults, forbidden archives, or simply dismissed as myth? And if you could read them, truly read them, would you dare to? Because knowledge cannot be banned forever. It waits, patiently, in fragments, in symbols,
in coded lines written across the centuries, waiting for someone to look closer.